Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have the Retribution Paladin PvE DPS guide for patch 11.2 season 3 of the War Within. A couple disclaimers before we get started. First one, as always, I try to make this video for everybody, whether you're doing plus 10 or higher keys, mythic rating, or you're doing your first mythic keystone ever, or LFR, normal raid. You just want to learn how to play the Paladin a little bit better. Maybe even you're just trying to learn some stuff for your delves or whatever. I try to make it for everybody. That's a hard gap to span, but I do my best to do so. Also, a lot of places you look in this world that will tell you just to simulate it. I try my best not to say that, because why would you be here if you simulated everything and had everything figured out yourself? I will try to give you answers the best I can to each thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to start with stats. Now, stat weights aren't really something in modern WoW. However, people still kind of want to know what stats to go for. It's just something they want to know. It also helps you maybe choose with your gem choices. This is one of the things where you technically have to simulate it, but I will give you a generalized order of what you can go in. For single target, we're going to go strength, mastery second, then a tie between crit and haste basically. Keep your crit and haste kind of similar. And then versatility, we don't really worry about versatility too much. Then for multi-target, we're going to go strength, then crit, and then mastery haste, kind of similar. And then again, we're not going to really worry about having too much versatility. That's kind of the order to go in. You won't know exactly how much mastery you should have and stuff like that unless you simulate it, or how much crit you should have in multi-target unless you simulate it. But that's generally where you should go. You should definitely weight the top one a little bit more than the other. This ring is very heavy crit. I'm going to wear this ring in multi-target. This necklace is very heavy mastery. I'm going to wear this necklace in single target. That's a very simplified way to look at it. All right, next up, let's go with hero talents and talents. So this is one that I always struggle with. Some people want me to read every single talent and say how it works. I almost would need to do that in just a different video. That would be way too long. Number one, I will put the links to these talent builds down below if you just want to copy them. Number two, if this is still too long for you, you can just skip this part and copy the link. I will go over the choice nodes and why we choose them, and maybe some interesting nodes and why we choose them, or very important nodes. But I can't go over every talent in the video. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through Templar single target. We're going to go Templar Mythic Plus. We're going to go Herald single target, Herald Mythic Plus, in that order. And for this patch, we are likely going to be playing Templar for most things. Herald is playable early on in the patch, especially before you get your 4 set where Templar kind of takes over. Herald is playable, and Herald might be playable in Mythic Plus even after that, but it will be very close to it, like very close to not being playable. But we will see when we get to that point of the patch when everyone has full gear. But probably Templar for most content, but Herald might be playable Mythic Plus, right? That's kind of where we are for this. So expect to play Templar. If you like Herald, maybe be pleasantly surprised when people are playing that Mythic Plus. That's kind of where we are. Of course, all things depending on tuning. If things get tuned, I always do updates to the videos if there's tuning that requires to change anything. So first we're going to start in Templar single target. For the Paladin side, we're just going to talk about the damage nodes. This is what this is the DPS guide. So we want to make sure that we have Divine Toll, that we have Divine Resonance, that we have Divine Purpose, a lot of divine things here. We want Holy Aegis, always. We want Seal of Might, we want Dusk of Dawn, and we want Vengeful Wrath. So everything that gives you damage, you want to take that. You could technically take Punishment. It technically gives you extra damage if you do an interrupt, right? Especially a Mythic Plus, but this is single target. So you don't even have to have Rebuke in raid if there's nothing to interrupt for that particular boss. But this is just a generalized thing, and you want to make sure you have the damage nodes, right? To do the damage, you need to have the damage nodes. We can go through the Templar choice nodes as well. We want Zealous Vindication over For Whom the Bell Tolls, and we want Sanctification over Endless Wrath. This other one is a choice. I choose Unrelenting Charger, but that is technically not damage related. Over on the Retribution side, this is where it gets a little bit more sticky of things to talk about. Choice nodes, we want Swift Justice. This is mostly just because we can't press Blade of Justice this often. If Blade of Justice did more damage, like a ton of damage, then maybe we would use this instead. We want Holy Blade over here. This is mostly because the fact that we don't have a lot of time to press our builders. We need to be pressing our Hammer of Lights and our spenders, and we're building Holy Power all the time with the way Ret plays right now. We don't have time to be having multiple Blade of Justice presses that only do one Holy Power apiece, because we need to build the 5 and we need to press Hammer of Light, especially this tier with 2 Hammer of Lights being pressed. This choice node, Final Verdict, you choose it over Justicar's Vengeance because it does more damage. Guided Prayer, this technically is a true choice node, but I choose Guided Prayer because it's like a mini defensive cooldown. Art of War, it's going to just reset your Blade of Justice. If you don't have this, it basically could lead to maybe you losing your Exburg on your target. Exburg's a very important talent to have here. You need this. This increases your damage significantly on single target. And yeah, it causes target to burn and take more damage and everything like that. Jurisdiction, this is the one that increases your range on your single target abilities. We choose Crusade over Avenging Wrath, especially in single target, but in all content, because it just does more damage. Simple as that. Vanguard's Momentum, this is a change from last season. This is going to be mostly the same as last season. Vanguard's Momentum is over Empyrean Legacy, and that's just because the way Divine Hammer works now. Vanguard's Momentum is just going to give you a little bit more damage. Zealot's Fervor, auto attack speed, pairs up with Crusading Strike auto attack. Rush of Light gives you haste. Holy Flames just increases your damage flatly. It's an AoE talent, but it's also a single target talent. Divine Hammer was nerfed tremendously, but we're still going to use it for Templar. You will not use it for Herald. You're still going to use this for Templar, and it's just a very powerful talent, even though it was nerfed. It was extremely powerful before the nerf, it's worth saying. Crusading Strike auto attack. This is just passive holy power and passive damage from your auto attacking, so it makes your auto attacks more potent. Boundless Judgment. It generates additional holy power. Basically makes your judgment do 2 holy power. Again, we want to build fast, the same as Holy Blade up here. High Lord's Wrath, that's not a choice node. Wake of Ashes, this is our main ability. We'll go over this in the rotational stuff. Penitence increases your burn damage, your Wake of Ashes burn, your Exburg burn, so that's a good damage buff there. Shield of Vengeance is one of your defensives. Abjuration, these aren't choice nodes. We choose Execution Sentence and single target always. And another important node is Radiant Glory. This is when you use your Wake of Ashes, it activates your wings, your Avenging Wrath, or your, in this case, Crusade. So that's important. It does change your play style. So we'll get more into some of these talents when we talk about the rotation, of course, and how they work, but that's generally what you're going to choose. Let's go into Mythic Plus for Templar, so we'll keep it Templar related. Obviously, we can choose a little bit more utility things for Mythic Plus, like Blinding Light, Cleanse Toxins, Light Forge Blessing, a little bit of healing for your group as well. When it comes to the talents over here, the big changes we have are we no longer have Vanguard's Momentum, we no longer have Rush of Light. Instead, we take Blessed Champion, and we take Empyrean Power. Empyrean Power is just a free Divine Storm that you want to cast when it procs, and it lights up for you and everything. We don't have Jurisdiction. Instead, we have Tempest of Lightbringer, increases our Divine Storm damage. And then instead of having Execution Sentence, we have Final Reckoning. You can play Execution Sentence in Mythic Plus. Most of the top-end players, and I'm not a top-end Mythic Plus player, but most of them use Final Reckoning, and I also use Final Reckoning. So I recommend Final Reckoning. But you will see, like on Wildhead, I think they still suggest you use Execution Sentence for Mythic Plus. I suggest Final Reckoning. It's a little bit difference there. We do not take Executioner's Will. We do not take Divine Arbiter. Instead, we take Burning Crusade and we take Searing Light for more AoE damage on the trash packs. So that's kind of like a Mythic Plus Templar build. We'll really quick go through the Herald stuff. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I don't know if we're going to be playing it very much. This is Herald's single target. It's going to be almost exactly the same. Let's go over the Herald abilities really quick. We choose Gleaming Rays. We choose Will of the Dawn. That's a choice node. The most important one is Blessing of Anshi. The Blizzard UI actually tracks this very well. If you turn on the cooldown manager, the Blizzard UI tracks Blessing of Anshi very, very well. And this is very important. We probably won't talk about this much in the rotation thing, but when Blessing of Anshi procs, you want to press your Hammer of Wrath like pretty much immediately because it can keep procking and it does a ton of damage. It's a ridiculous amount of damage how much Blessing of Anshi does. So you definitely want to be pressing your hammer wrath when this thing procs. It's very important to do so. If you can't handle it, that's another reason not to play Herald, because if you're missing out on that, you're missing out on a ton of damage. When it comes to the talents over here, mostly the same. We have a little bit of a change. Instead of having Divine Hammer, because it doesn't help Templar at all, we just go ahead and we move that into Empyrean Legacy. Not a lot of good choices for this talent, but that's just where we happen to move it to. Divine Hammer doesn't do pretty much anything for Herald single target. When we go to Herald for Mythic Plus, it's going to be, I believe, exactly the same as Templar Mythic Plus, except for Divine Hammer. So where do we have it? Okay, so instead of Divine Hammer, I have it in Jurisdiction. This feels really nice in Mythic Plus. It lets you have a little bit more range on your blade, on your Final Verdict as well, if you are doing a boss, right, and you're out of range because of a mechanic or something. Gives you a little bit more range, and Divine Hammer doesn't do anything for you anyways, so it's just a nice little place to move it to for there. You could move it to Sanctify for just more AoE damage. You also could move this to Rush of Light. This is a talent you can play with in Mythic Plus. Basically, you move your Divine Hammer out, and you're putting it in the Jurisdiction for feel and comfort. You're putting it into Sanctify for AoE. You're putting it for Rush of Light for more single target focus damage, but you know, a little bit more AoE damage as well. So that's a Herald of the Sun overall build. All right, those will be down below in the description below. Next up, let's do ability, priority, and our rotation, where we can talk more about those abilities from the talents. So let's focus on Templar here first. So the Templar tier set is going to change our rotation very slightly from the last patch if you played last patch. So what it does, one of the things it does, is it makes you be able to cast Hammer of Light again after your first Hammer of Light. Now this kind of actually works out pretty well for us. We won't be able to see it perfectly here because there's no single target dummy here, but it does work out this way. So we're first going to do it without pressing the button. We're just going to say what we're going to do. So first we're going to press Blade of Justice. It's going to give us 2 holy power. Then we're going to press Divine Toll, and if it's on single target, it's going to give us 2 holy power. Our Crusading Strike auto attack, unless it bugs, which it can happen, I guess, which I have noticed it before, should have us at 5 holy power then. And, you know, you either wait an extra second and get it, or you press Judgment if it bugs, right? But let's just say it doesn't bug. You're at 5 holy power. You press your Divine Hammer ability, okay? So you go from 5 to 2. Your Divine Hammer is rolling. You Execution Sentence. You Wake of Ashes. That puts you back up to 5. Hammer of Light. That puts you to 0. Now you're going to have a Divine Toll tick and another Crusading Strike auto attack hit sometime in the near future after this point. That's 3 holy power. So what you need to then press is likely Judgment. If your Expurg was running off at that point, which how long does Expurg last? 8 seconds. It could be almost running out at that point. So you can either press your Blade of Justice or your Judgment, depending on if your Expurg's about to run out or not, at that point. And that'll put you back up to 5, where you'll then use your second Hammer of Light. And that'll kind of be your opener. So it'll be, again, we can't do this. The tier sets aren't available on live yet, but we can kind of go through it. So we're gonna Blade of Justice, Divine Toll, Divine Hammer, Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light, Blade of Justice, Hammer of Light in that case, and then we'll go with our priority from there, and we'll go over what our priority is. Before we get into that, let's talk about when we use our Trinket and Potion. So in single target and, well, in AoE for the most part as well, you basically want to pair up you want to set up your Trinket and your Potion right before you press your Wake of Ashes, essentially. So in this case, it's basically with your Execution Sentence, or right after your Execution Sentence, but before your Wake of Ashes. So during that whole setup, I would press my so I have my Potion equipped over there, one of my Trinkets here, and my weapon, any on use, right? Trinket or on use. So I would do Execution Sentence and then that, and then so like press them both at the same time, or macro it together, however you like to do it, and then go ahead and go into your abilities. We'll go over that one more time because it is a little bit tricky if you've never played Ret before, you don't know what Crusading Auto attack exactly is, and you don't know why your Divine Toll is proccing. Your Divine Toll is proccing because of Divine Resonance. It keeps hitting, and then your Crusading Auto Strike, Crusading Strike Auto Attack generates the Holy Power as well. So we'll go over it one more time. I have some abilities on cooldown, but we'll pretend they aren't. So we're gonna go Blade into Divine Toll, into Divine Hammer, into Execution Sentence, into Wake, into Hammer of Light, into Blade, into Hammer of Light. And it'll be like that. And now we'll go over the rest of it. Okay? So it may sound hard because I'm saying it really fast, but it's not. After that point, we don't have that many builders. So we just have Judgment, Blade, and Hammer of Wrath. And basically, Judgment would be your number one choice in those. You want to press your Judgment. However, if your Expurg is about to fall off, so right here, see this burn expurgation, if that's going to fall off, you want to press Blade again. You want this to be up at all times. So this is about to fall off. If I have to choose between the two, I'm choosing Blade again, because I want that up at all times. I don't want that to fall off. So a lot of times you do end up choosing Blade, but obviously you have to press your Judgment as well. And Judgment will do a little bit more damage for itself, but not if the burn's not on it, right? The burn itself plus the burn does more damage with Holy Strike damage. So you want to have your Expurg up at all times. So we have that general rotation we talked about. Then we have Judgment over Blade, but only if Expurg is already on it. If it's already burning, right? Other than that, we want it to burn. Then Hammer of Wrath. Now, when it's below 20%, now Hammer of Wrath and Judgment are kind of equal on equal terms. Maybe even Hammer of Wrath gets maybe even a little bit priority, right? Because it generates 2 Holy Power, and it, has other, buffs again, like from Vengeful Wrath as well. But again, we still want the target to be burning. So the number one thing is Blade if it's not burning. And if you are new or you are, just getting into this, just learning, just lean on the side of pressing your Blade. You will lose out a little bit of damage, but you want to get used to having your Blade up or your burn up on your target. It's very important. So that's what we do on the 2-minute cooldown with the Divine Hammer. But now we have a 1-minute cooldown. So there's going to be 2 possible things that happen here. And you basically want to use your trinkets and stuff each time you use Execution Sentence. You want to put it into it. The rule for trinkets and potions, no matter what spec you play, is the most good uses possible. So if you can get, if you have one more use of your trinket, right, for whatever fight you're in, a Mythic Plus is going to be a little bit different. In a boss fight, you know how long it's going to last generally. If you have one more use of it, right, and you can either use it on a 30-second and you don't have Divine Toll or Divine Hammer, or you can use that last use with Divine Hammer and Divine Toll, then do that, right? Hopefully that makes sense to you. But so like Execution Sentence and Wake of Ashes are on a 30-second cooldown. You can use your trinket with that, especially if you have like 2 on-use trinkets, right? You can use one of those with that just 30-second window. But if you're only going to have one more use anyways, well then just hold it for the Divine Hammer or for the Divine Toll, right? Get as much good uses as possible. That's very important that a lot of people don't do. And it's very fundamental to basically every spec in the game. So let's say, we used our Divine Hammer, now we just have Divine Toll. So let's say we are in the situation where we have 5 Holy Power already. So we don't want to press Divine Toll because we're already at 5 Holy Power, right? And we don't want to press Execution Sentence because we're already at 5. We don't want to Wake of Ashes at 5. So in this case, so let's pretend Divine Toll is on cooldown, our 2 minutes on cooldown. We're going to press Verdict, Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light, Divine Toll, and then Blade, let's say, and then Hammer of Light again, right? And that's how we're going to do it in that case. Now, the problem is the Divine Toll proc might not be up. It may or may not hit in that window. If it doesn't, then you would have to Blade, Judgment, second Hammer of Light, okay? On the opener, it's not going to be an issue. But during these cases, it could be an issue, and trying to make it work might cost you more DPS than what you gain. So that's like the only weird thing. On the 30-second one, it's a lot easier because you're not going to have Divine Toll to help you out at all. So on your 30-second one, again, so we're just going to use Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light. Now we have to press Judgment and Blade and do our second of Hammer of Light. Now we have to no matter what. You might still have to on the 1 minute one, depending on how it lines up. Now, if you are spending, you know, a little bit more judiciously here and you're already low, then on the 1 minute one, you can do kind of the same thing where you do your blade, your divine toll, and then instead of, you don't have hammer up, but you can press verdict, execution sentence, wake of ashes, hammer of light, blade, hammer of light. So you can make it work as well, right? But that's generally what you want to do. That's like, if you can kind of visualize that, that's what you want to do with this tier set. The tier set feels clunky as well. So if it sounds clunky, it's because it kind of feels clunky too to build the 5 a second time. Other than that, you want to kind of spend on 4 or 5. I would recommend 4, especially if you're not the absolute best player, because it's so easy to overcap your holy power right now as Ret. I would recommend spending on 4, like for your verdicts and stuff, or your divine storm and AoE. I'd recommend spending on 4 holy power. And now, if you are tracking your swing timer for your Casillas auto attack, if you're tracking your divine resonance, and you're doing it perfectly, then spend it 5. But if you are not doing that, or you're not good at it, then I would recommend spending it like 4. And even if you spend it 3, sometimes it'll be okay. It's better than overcapping, but like spending it 3 isn't better than overcapping by a lot, but it's still a little bit better. Overcapping is bad on your holy power, so you generally want to get rid of that or avoid that. Now, for AoE, it's basically the same exact thing. Let's just go to Mythic Plus Templar, because we're still gonna have Hammer of Light. We still have Divine Hammer. Now, the difference in AoE is this: you could in Mythic Plus, at any given point, you could be running into a pull with 5 holy power. You could be running into a pull with 0 holy power. So if you're running into a pull with 0 holy power, this is a big one that I like to tell people. Your divine toll generates more holy power if you hit more targets, right? So let's say I just run into this pull. I'm at 0 holy power. I'm just going to press divine toll. Now let's say I hit 3 targets, I would be at 5. Then I'm going to divine hammer. Then I'm going to wake of ashes into final reckoning, into hammer of light, into a blade or whatever, into hammer of light, and then proceed from there. Now the big difference is now I'm pressing divine storm instead of final verdict. And that's pretty much the only difference. And then we pretty much never press Hammer of Wrath in AoE situations, unless you have to. If there's no other button to press, then of course press it. But we generally don't want to press it, and we're just going to press Divine Storm a lot. And then when our Wake of Ashes comes back up, Wake of Ashes, Divine Toll, do 2 spenders this time to Hammer of Light again with your tier set, right? And it's basically the same exact thing we talked about, except for we are prioritizing Divine Storm over Final Verdict. That's basically, you just swap them out for each other. Very simplified way to do it, but again, there's no perfect opener in Mythic Plus, because you might be starting at 1 holy power, 0 holy power, 5 holy power. If you start at 5, then just start with your Divine Hammer, and then Wake of Ashes, and then Final Reckoning, Hammer of Light, and then you'll have to build up with your Divine Toll plus Blade, and then get a Crusader Strike auto attack to get your second Hammer of Light. But that's generally how you want to do it. Herald is very easy. I don't even think we need to show Herald, really, because there's a lot less buttons to press. You don't have to even press your Divine Toll first in Herald if you don't want to, because it's not that big of a deal. Herald is just very straightforward. Let's see, can I even switch? I can't switch yet because I have Divine Hammer. So with Herald, you don't have to do anything special. You're basically just make sure you Execution Sentence first, Wake of Ashes, you get Divine Purpose proc, so 2 Final Verdicts in single target, or 2 Divine Storms in AoE, is what you have procced, and then go ahead and use your Divine Toll, then just use your priority from there, right? Because you don't have to worry about Divine Hammer, you don't have to worry about fitting everything in as perfectly. It's not as big of a deal with Herald as it is with Templar. So Herald's just an easier spec to play in general. I guess we can go to it. Herald, single target. You can't change challenge. Okay, I'm stuck in combat. Anyways, it's basically the same exact thing, same priority. Priority doesn't change. It's just you don't have the hammer of lights and the weird stuff to worry about like that. You just kind of play the game freely. You spam Final Verdict or you spam Divine Storm in AoE, and that's it. Now, as far as another thing that's important to point out, at what target cap do I start using my Divine Storm? 2. If there's 2 targets, just go ahead and use your Divine Storm instead of Final Verdict. It is close on 2 targets. to be completely fair. But then at 3 targets, it's like super obvious to use Divine Storm. And in 2 targets, it would depend if one of them's prio or not. If one of them is a prio target, then yeah, you could use your single target on it. Like if it's in a raid, it would just depend. Is this an important thing to kill or not an important thing to kill? Whether or not you would press your Divine Storm for 2 targets. But generally speaking, at 2 targets, your Divine Storm will do a little bit more damage than funneling everything into one. All right, so that's hopefully everything on ability priority rotation. I mentioned the tier set a lot of times for. We're gonna talk about tier sets next, by the way. The tier sets a lot of times for Herald. The reason I didn't mention it for Templar, the reason I didn't mention it for Herald is because Herald doesn't change your gameplay at all. So let's just go ahead and move and talk more about the tier set. So the Templar tier set, your Empyrean Hammer deals 20% increase critical damage and critical strikes have a 50% chance to grant an additional stack of lights deliverance. This just gives you more Hammer of Lights. That's a simplified way to say it. More free Hammer of Lights, not the 5 holy power cost ones. 4 set. Hammer of Light deals 35 increased damage to its primary target, strikes 3 additional secondary targets. It can now be cast 1 more time after Wake of Ashes. That's that second build, the 5 we've been talking about. It also just drastically increases the damage it does by 35%. That's a lot. This is the 4 set that actually does some impactful damage for Rat. And that's how it changes your playstyle, right? It increases your damage, gets more Hammer of Lights. Your Hammer of Lights do more damage. They hit more targets, although that's a very small window to hit more targets. And yeah, that's basically how that one works. Now let's go to, I think if we switch to Herald here, we'll be able to see the Herald tier sets as well. This one does not change much. And then we could talk about like when to use them and stuff like that. Dawnlight's healing and damage is increased by 30%, and you gain Solar Wrath, Avenging Wrath, Sun's Avatar, Linger for a time, so it's just passive damage. Solar Wrath increases the effectiveness of your holy power spenders by 50% and grants you 1 Dawnlight. Again, this is just passive stuff. You do your normal rotation, you do more damage. It's pretty dang simple. Now, the tier set. Herald's is pretty dang weak. It's very passive, it's pretty weak. The 2 set's decent, so if you were to play Herald in like single target, you would do it when you got your 2 set, but you didn't have your 4 set. And you used your 2 set from this season and your 2 set from last season for Herald. That would be when you use Herald for single target, for example. For Templar, you kind of just want to wait till you get your 4 set. The 2 set for Templar is not good. So for Templar, you kind of just want to wait till you get your 4 set, put on your 4 set, and go from there. Now, you could simulate it. Just the item level increase may overtake it, right? But if you don't want to simulate it, and you're only playing Templar, wait till you get your 4 set, put it on. You want to try Herald, get your 2 set, combine it with last season's 2 set, and try to play some Herald. You can do that, right? You can mix and match. But generally speaking, once you get access to 4 set, that's where Templar kind of takes over because it actually has a decent 4 set, whereas Herald doesn't. And that's kind of like the biggest difference between the 2 of them right now. And kind of what you want to go for. You want to get 4 set, makes Templar good. The 2 and 2 set is decent for Herald, but it's not really even that great, to be honest. It just is kind of decent. And the Templar 2 set's just really low damage output. Okay, so next up, let's talk about trinkets. We're going to talk about single target trinkets and AoE trinkets. So let's go to loot here. Now, the bad news for Mythic Plus players is a lot of the good trinkets are from Raid. This is kind of a normal thing. So the best trinket, in my opinion, is going to probably be this Astral Antenna. I say it's the best because it's good for single target. It's also good for AoE. It just increases your critical strike chance. The antenna has a chance to detect, draw ambient arcane energy towards you. So I don't know if you have to collect the energy, if it literally comes towards you and it, like you don't have to move for it. I haven't got to use this yet. But this trinket, just the critical strike that you get from it is really, really good. If it is a nuisance to use, then maybe we'll move it down a tier. But it's like good for everything. Now the good news is this comes off the second boss, which means it will be puggable even on Mythic, which is very, very important for Mythic Plus players especially, right? So the Astral Antenna, it's good for everything, and that's what's nice about it, right? Some other good trinkets in Raid that are a little bit more, one that's very single target is Araz's Ritual Forge. This is a very good single target trinket. It's critical strike and on use gives you strength, right? a good amount of strength. This is a very good single target trinket. This drops off of Forge Reaver Araz, so the 4th boss. This is a very good single target trinket, very good trinket for the raid in general. And then we have the Eradicating Arcana Core. This actually drops off the 1st boss, and is another really good trinket. I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of times these get tuned. Trinkets get tuned. It's the #1 thing I have to do an update video for on these ret guides are the trinkets, because they get tuned a lot to make them fit in more. This drops off the 1st boss, so I could see this getting tuned down. This is another one that's really good for both content, is Eradicating Arcana Core. Again, it's off the 1st boss, so it is obtainable, you know, even on Mythic at some point, right? The Eradicating Arcana Core is very obtainable, and yeah, so you want to, this is good for, again, Mythic Plus and single target, right? So probably your best thing for single target, you kind of want to, you know, that Ritual Forge is very good. It's going to be very good for you. And then the Arcana Core is pretty good. The antenna is really good too. So I would imagine probably a lot of raiders will end up rocking like the antenna and the Ritual Forge for raid. But the Arcana Core is also, don't sleep on the Arcana Core. It's off the 1st boss, but I could see this getting tuned down, to be completely honest. Don't sleep on that one as well. A lot of times I actually get these trinkets a little bit more right than other people. So for Mythic Plus, however, we don't have a lot of great trinkets. A lot of the trinkets are pretty samey. Now the best trinket in Mythic Plus this tier, as of this tuning, is going to be the Pacemaker, this improvised super and Pacemaker. So it's a trinket I'm wearing right now from last year. This trinket is good in AoE and single target, and it's like it's one of those things where it's not going to overstep those other trinkets we talked about, but it is pretty good. And if you do not raid at all, you will want to get this. Now after this, a lot of the trinkets are pretty much samey. So you might see a lot of people rocking like Priory. So Signet of the Priory here. This is a decent one. It's on use, which is nice for Mythic Plus, right? On uses are very nice. You can use it with you can use them with the pulls, right? You know, you get more pulls, you get more uses. So Signet of the Priory can be pretty good. Other on uses are pretty good, but a lot of these Mythic Plus trinkets as of now are very similar to each other, right? And that's unfortunate that a lot of the best trinkets are from raid. The good news is that they are from the earlier bosses. Okay, so if you can get your hands on an antenna, let's say as a Mythic Plus player you get an antenna and a Pacemaker, you know, that might be good for the whole season for you. Now maybe even after tuning, after everything is figured out even more, maybe both, maybe the Arcana Core or maybe whatever, another raid trinket ends up being even better and you need to get that. But as of right now, I could see a lot of Mythic Plus players getting one of the raid trinkets and then like a Pacemaker. That's what my projection will be for Mythic Plus and trinkets. I think this is another time to talk about this belt. So we talked about, because trinkets are kind of like best in slot trinkets, let's talk about this belt real quick. And then we're going to move on to the Reshi wraps, which is the new thing. So this belt, we're going to replace this pretty quickly. Basically, once you get like a 710 or a 715 belt, you can go ahead and replace this durable information security container belt. It is pretty good. If you're using it for now, you want to be using the critical strike option on it, which is the critical chain, and just replace it when you get high enough. If you can sim it. But you know, once you get close to like that 715 mark or whatever, you want to replace it. If you're a much more casual player and you're never going to get like above 710, let's say like 707 is where you're going to cap out as a casual player, then you could just continue to wear this actually, and it'll actually probably be pretty good for you throughout the patch if that's just the level of content that you do. So next, let's talk about these Reshi wraps. So this is interesting. These are very, very tightly tuned. Okay, basically your choice is what you get. You get these on a, first of all, if you don't know, to get the pure fibers, so you get the fibers from the vendor when you do the whole quest line to unlock these wraps. It's a long quest line in the crash or whatever. Now this is one where you technically would have to simulate it because they are extremely close. I would say play whatever you want, other than burst, I guess, unless you just need bursts for whatever content you're doing. But For me, Critical Strike sim the best. For a lot of other people, Mastery is simming the best, right? So you want to do what's best for you. Generally speaking, what will probably be the case is in Raid, Mastery will be the best, and in Mythic Plus, Critical Strike will be the best. Now you can also get more of these made and change out the sockets and stuff like that, so you can swap between, but it's very close. For me right now, just as an example, maybe I'm a very weird example, all of them are within 4,000 of each other. So like they're all like literally like 1,000 apart, right? They're very minimal difference between crit, verse, haste, and mastery. It's all very the same. But again, I have my stats kind of aligned in that way from the previous season. We talked about that before, how I like to do that at the during the stats section earlier. So because I have that, that's why for me it's all pretty much equal on what I put it in. So for me, crit was the best. Generally speaking, my projection is that crit will be the best for Mythic Plus, and that mastery will generally be better for single target. But it could be that crit's just best for everything. We will see as the patch unfolds there. But for now, again, if you're mostly a Mythic Plus player, just put in crit. It's not going to hurt you at all. If you're mostly a raid player, you can put in mastery, or you can put in crit. Or maybe your haste is very low, and if you simmed it, haste would be better. But again, I'm not going to tell you to sim it, but you can sim this. They do have the thing. Just click replace existing gems and sockets if you already have one equipped on the sim thing if you do sim your character. All right, next, let's talk about our crafted gear and our embellishments. Early on, craft as many pieces as you want or need if they're an item level increase. There's basically two ways to look at the crafted gear and embellishments, though. One is if you do not have access to a mythic weapon. So if you cannot do Mythic Plus at a level that could ever give you a mythic weapon in your vault, or you do not mythic raid, so you can't get a mythic weapon from the raid. Luckily, there's no like super weapon in this particular patch, two-handed weapon with a cantrip on it that you need to get from raid or anything like that, like the best in slots, for example. If you can't do that, then what's nice is you can just craft a weapon. It'll be 3 item levels lower than the mythic weapon, and you want to put the Dark Moon, Ascension. Oh my gosh, I should know this. I don't use it personally, but you want to put the Dark Moon thing, and then the ritual binding on your bracers is what you would want to do. So you put the dark. I believe it's Ascension. I will check and put a little text if I'm wrong. Dark Moon Ascension on your weapon, if that's the only way you can get a high level weapon, with the bindings that increase the power of it on your bracers. So you always are going to want to craft your bracers pretty much. Then, especially because we have the Reshi wraps, the generalized thing, and what might be even better for Mythic Plus anyways, is the Dawnlight, which is the critical strike. And if you're going to do the critical strike route, put the critical strike on your bracers and on your belt. Right, so we're going to replace our belt at some point, right? Our information security container. Now, if you can't, now again, here's another thing. So let's say you do have access. Let's say you're in this very niche situation. You do have access to a mythic weapon, but you do not have access to a high level belt for some reason. I don't know how that would be the case, but let's say that is the case. Then you could just craft your boots instead and put the Dawnlight on your boots instead. But generally speaking, most rets are going to have Dawnlight on their bracers and their belts, and then some rets are going to have a crafted weapon with crafted bracers with the Dark Moon pair up there. Okay, I wanted to check it out just to make sure I was right. I am right. It's Dark Moon Ascension, and it's the Writhing Armor banding that you would put on your bracers. I wanted to make sure that was correct. I didn't want to have incorrect information in here. So that's what you do if you have no access to a mythic weapon. Or if you just want to get a weapon early on, you have bad luck with weapons, and then you're willing to waste some sparks, and then later on get a better weapon and switch it back to Dawnlight later on. But that's kind of where you want to be when it comes to that. So that's crafted gear and embellishments. And now we have consumables, enchants, and gems to round this out. For consumables, we're going to be using alchemical chaos for our flask. Let's switch over to here where I have the stuff more promptly on my bars here. We're going to be using Alchemical Chaos for our flask. Algari Mana Oil is the best weapon thing. You can use the Ironclaw Whetstones or whatever as well. We want to use secondary stat food that gives you your highest secondary stat. And you want to use tempered potions for your potions as well. And that's pretty much for all content. You can do some different stuff in Mythic Plus, but that's good for all content. For me, I like to just use one thing. You can experiment with some other things. There are other usable things, but generally speaking, those are the best choices, and that's what this guide's for. It's kind of like giving you a general idea of what to use. So those are kind of your consumables. For enchants, we want to use, let's see, we have enchants. So on our rings. So generally speaking, for single target, this is something you would have to sim, right? For sure. But generally speaking, for single target, you'd want mastery on your rings. But for Mythic Plus, you might want crit enchanted on your rings. We want to put the avoidance, the winged grace, on our cloak. And then we want to put crystal radiance on our chest. That's strength. We want to, you can put speed or stam on your boots. So Scout's March is what I have though. And then actually for this tier, we actually want to put Stonebound Artistry back on our weapon. That's the same as tier 1 instead of Authority of the Depths. But Authority of the Depths is very, very close. You might, again, this is something you would sim if you can. Authority of the Depths or Stonebound Artistry. Stonebound Artistry might have a little bit of an advantage there. And then we want to put the Stonebound Armor Kit on our legs as well. So those are kind of the enchants we want. And then for gems, again, this is something you would have to technically sim, but generally speaking, you want to do mastery and haste for single target, and either mastery and crit or crit and mastery for AoE. Again, this would depend on what your stats look like. If your haste is only 5%, well, then you probably want to put haste on your rings and haste in your gems, right? These are things that are nuanced, but you know, these are just generalizations, okay? But you want to have your crit and haste, especially in single target, be kind of similar. Your mastery is going to be a little bit higher. Have your critical strike be a bit higher. It probably won't be higher than your mastery because we gain inherent mastery. But have your critical strike chance be a little bit higher for Mythic Plus, and then your haste and mastery. They're not going to be the same because your mastery percentage is going to be higher, but you know, similar weight to those. And then for the big gem, we want to have the crit effect. So primary stat and then critical strike effect per unique Algari gem color. Do not focus on getting the different colors of gems. Just put in the best gems that have the best stats for you. The gain isn't worth it by that much. So you just want to use the best stats available to you. So that's enchants, gems, and consumables. I don't think there is anything else in that realm. So yeah, there is a new potion to use in this patch that you can use for a healing potion. But yeah, that should be it for this one, guys. Hopefully I went over everything very well for you. A couple extra things here. I did make a guild in the game. So if you're a Ret Paladin, you're here with me this long, I did make a guild, Retribution required. You can join this guild. You can apply to it in the guild finder and I will just accept you. Just join on a Paladin character. It could be your main or your alt. I also made a community. That's a way to get Horde players in, or you could just join the community because you don't want to join the guild because you're in a raiding guild and you don't have an alt Paladin, whatever. But you can join the guild, Retribution required. Yeah, just trying to get as many people in here as we can just to have a good time. A lot of it's alts because a lot of you guys are in guilds already, but that's fine. You know, you could always come in and talk. We also have a Discord, Retribution required as well, but I wanted to throw that in here at the end of this video as well. So that will be it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.